A very good afternoon to you wherever you're watching us from. This is indeed your home of business, KTN Financial Markets Live, a show that is out to bring you market info and live data analysis coming from the Nairobi Securities Exchange and all the info that you need to know before you make that all-important investment decision. My name is Boni Tunya. Today we'll first start with a look at how your money is doing at the NSE, and as always we like to start things positive with a look at the top gainers in the counters. And a look at the top gainers as at 2 p.m. this afternoon. EGAZ is up 9.23%, and you can buy it at 35 shillings and 50 cents, while CIC Insurance is up 5.56%. It is going for 4 shillings and 75 cents. Now, British American Investments is up 5.36%, and you could buy on that counter at 5 shillings and 90 cents, as Scan Group is on winning ways, up 3.74%, going for 55 shillings and 50 cents, as CFC Insurance Holdings up 3.33%, closing the winning counter for us, and you can buy it at 7 shillings and 75 cents. Let's now have a look at the day's top losers, and Express Limited is down 7.50%. The counter goes for 3 shillings and 70 cents. As Safaricom is down 2.56%. It is going for 3 shillings and 80 cents. TPS Serena, the owners of Serena Hotels, on losing ways, now down 2.27%, and the share was valued at 43 shillings, as Centum Investments is down 1.93 rather, and it was going for 12 shillings and 70 cents, as Housing Finance closes their losers for us, down 1.57, and you can buy it at 15 shillings and 65 cents. A quick look at the all-share index right now, and we are valued at 84.32, while the 20-share index that crossed the 3,800 mark this week is now doing 3,870.51. The Kenya FTSE 15 index, that's the Financial Times Stock Exchange, is valued at 101.29, while the FTSE 25 index is at 113.73. Market capitalization right now stands at 1,111.92, while the total shares traded as at 2:05 this afternoon are at 29,380,700, while equity turnover is currently valued at 359,997.35, as total deals as at this afternoon stand at 1,387. A quick recap of the day's top gainers now, and EGAZ is up 9.23%, CIC Insurance up 5.56%, British American Investments up 5.36%, Scan Group is in the region of 3.74%, as CIC Insurance Holdings gains 3.33%. A look at the day's top losers. Express Limited is down 7.50%, as Safaricom and TPS Serena are down 2.56 and 2.27 respectively. Centum Investment is down 1.93%, and Housing Finance is on losing ways, down 1.57%. And of course, this being a live show, we'll be giving you more data as it streams in. This is KTN Financial Markets Live. Moving on to other business news, and dairy farmers in the country have demanded a 51% shareholding in the proposed privatization of the new KCC. Now, during a consultative meeting with the Minister for Cooperatives and Development, Joe Nyaga, in Nyeri County, the dairy farmers expressed their desire to have the shares increased from the current 42% to 51%. According to the farmers, this was a sure way of ensuring that their interests were well taken care of in the revival of the giant dairy company. Now, in a task force report by the ministry, the shareholding structure for the new KCC was designed to accommodate interested parties, including the farmers, consumers, and plantation workers, as well as government. Now, this will be shared in the region of 42% of the shares for farmers, 34% for consumers, 20% for the government, and 4% for the workers. The minister assured the farmers that the government will consider their recommendations before the final allocation ratio is agreed upon.
Sasa wakati wa kurudisha nyinyi kampani yenu umefika. Lakini kuna mnyama unaitwa privatization commission. Mnasikia hiyo mnyama? Ukiangalia motokaa za KCC ni blue number plate. Kutoa hiyo number plate ya blue uweke number plate ya kawaida is a very complicated process. Na wale wananipiga juu ya KPCU, the reason I refused pesa ya serikali kusaidia KPCU ni kwa sababu itakuwa blue number plate. Na kutoa number plate ya blue kuirudishia mkulima tena is a complicated, difficult process.
Moving on now, and more legislators are voicing their concern opposing the proposed value-added tax bill. A section of MPs have vowed to shoot down the proposed bill if Finance Minister Njeru Githai introduces it in Parliament. Now, if dissenting MPs argue that the proposed bill will stunt economic growth in the country, the outrage by legislators is not entirely unexpected, according to observers, given that the bill proposes that the value-added tax, commonly referred to as VAT, be standardized to 16%. And we'll be having that story coming on later on. But the Kenya Ports Authority has invited bids for the design and construction of 3 berths for the Lamu Port project. Now, this will be the first phase of the mega Kenya Southern Sudan Ethiopia transport corridor, gets toward unlocking trade potential in the East African region.
The Lamu Port Southern Sudan Ethiopia Transport Corridor, or LAPSET, is crucial to the attainment of Kenya's Vision 2030 and forms Kenya's second transport and economic development corridor. The design and construction of Kenya's second port is seen as the first step towards beginning work on the 1.5 trillion shilling Lamu Port project in a bid of unlocking interregional trade. The expression of interest also includes construction of a railway line, pipeline and oil refinery, which is international bidders. The project aimed at opening up northern Kenya, a vast area whose economy lags behind the rest of the country. The government has been tight-lipped on how it intends to fund the Mammoth project, saying it could only raise up to 6.9 billion shillings of the project's 1.5 trillion bill from its current budget.
Moving on now, in the recap of our story we just did earlier, where more legislators are voicing their opposition to the proposed value-added tax bill. Now, a section of MPs have vowed to shoot down the proposed bill if Finance Minister Njeru Githai introduces it in Parliament. Now, the dissenting members of Parliament argue that the proposed bill will stunt economic growth in the country, and the outrage by the legislators is not entirely unexpected. Now, according to observers, given that the bill proposes the value-added tax, commonly referred to as VAT, be standardized to 16%.
The proposed VAT bill has already stirred a storm even before being introduced in Parliament. Legislators Aidan Duale, Fred Kapondi and Charles Kilonzo have added their voices to those opposed to the proposed bill. This is their argument.
What kind of a government which came through promises to improve the life of the people of this country, and more so to uplift the very poor, will come up with such a bill? A bill which tells us we'll have to forget about Vision 2030.
It is very retrogressive for them to come up with something that is going to undermine the gains that we have witnessed for the last 4 years.
That if this law is implemented, is signed into law, the economic growth rate of this country will go down from where we are now. The food security in this country will be terrible.
It is these arguments that have seen a section of critics term the proposed bill draconian. Treasury has, however, come out to defend itself, arguing that staple food prices have been on a steady increase despite zero rating. The Funds Ministry says that other alternatives should be found to cushion Kenyans rather than erode the tax base. George Ojema, an economic consultant, however, holds a different view.
So the minister ought to have come with pragmatic policy approaches that target more on contractionary fiscal policy.
Questions have also been raised over Treasury's zeal to collect revenue from the strained Kenyan, all the while supporting a flamboyant government. According to the MPs, by presenting the bill, Treasury will be submitting to pressure from the Bretton Woods institutions, namely the IMF, which has held that Kenya loses up to 100 billion shillings in zero-rating goods and services. The bill is slated for discussions as Parliament resumes its sittings.
And now moving on, just a recap of the market data that is streaming in. Market capitalization is now valued at 1,111.92, as the total share traded is at 29,380,700, with the equity turnover at 359,997.35, with the total deals traded now currently stand at 1,388. And of course, that is the market data that will keep streaming in towards the entire course of this live broadcast. Now, this afternoon we are talking about food, and it is said that a country should be able to feed its own, and we'll be talking about matters of grain. Of course, maize being our staple food, we'll be looking in that direction. And joining me in studio is the chairman of the Eastern African Grain Council, Judah Arapbet. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bonya.
Judah, East African Grain Council, what exactly is your mandate?
Well, let me start by saying East Africa Grain Council is a membership-based organization operating in the whole of the Eastern African region.
Correct.
The key stakeholders are the three sections of the grain chain value. We have the producers, the traders, the processors, and service providers as associate members. Our main mandate is to mobilize private sector players to work with other stakeholders, including governments and regional economic blocs, to put in place an enabling policy and business environment for investment in agriculture, agribusiness. In this aspect, we do promote get-togethers of all the grain stakeholders.
Yes.
Like in the next week,
Correct.
we will be in Nakuru on the 9th and the 10th, running an agro-business fair. All the stakeholders will be there to see and to discuss face-to-face all the problems that affect the agriculture.
Now, Mr. Bet, sorry to cut you short, but going by your very clear mandate, you seem like you have quite your job cut out for you. And also operating in an environment where we've had scarcity in fertilizer, we don't have sufficient grain reserves. From a very clear job description to the challenges on the ground, where do you think is the disconnect?
Maybe some background information is very important. First, Kenya is still a net consumer, especially of staple foods.
Yes.
We do import. The estimated output of our grain this year, maize in particular, is 2.5 million metric tons compared to a consumption of 3.6 million. Average production of rice is between 30 and 40%.
Yes.
That means we are dependent on imports.
So how much, sorry to cut you short again, but how much do we produce vis-a-vis what we export in terms of ratios?
We don't export any maize.
So I meant import rather, what we bring in.
What we bring in is a deficit.
Yes.
As I said, our consumption is 2.5 million metric tons.
Correct.
No, that's our production. And our consumption is 3.6.
So about a quarter of that.
About 1 million metric tons shortfall. And the production seems to be declining due to various factors. As some parts of the country this year delayed in planting due to delayed arrival of fertilizers.
Correct.
The weather patterns are changing regularly.
And even if the fertilizers are subsidized and sent, there was some bit of confusion between the government and the farmers. So there was still a problem, the fertilizer getting to them. But be that as it may, yes.
Well, but first of all, we need to know something. We talk about food security. We talk about economic growth and stability. A region without food is an unstable region. But why agriculture all the time? We need to know that 25% of employment of GDP comes from agriculture.
Yes.
85% is unemployment. It has a potential, agriculture has potential to boost the GDP of the whole region. And depending on the policies and the environment that we operate in, it can either break or make the peace within the region. So agriculture is very important. Reflecting on the budget just read the other day by the minister, Kenya allocated 1 billion for agribusiness fund. That is the highest ever since, which means everybody actually is focusing on food security. They allocated 1.5 billion for
Yes.
purposes of coffee, rice and sugar farm debts. 1.6 billion was set aside for strategic grain reserves, again to emphasize the need for food security. So our mandate is to bring together all the players and stakeholders in the agribusiness and to advocate for agriculture as a business.
Mr. Bett, let me just be the devil's advocate a little bit here. Of course, looking at the history of the budget-making process in Kenya, those figures that we saw last year and the year before were astronomical, and it was a clear indication that the government is actually serious on boosting agriculture. But looking at those figures and looking at the kind of management systems that we have, people in this industry will always say that we lose quite a bit of our grain in post-harvest handling, okay? And we are still rain dependent. Our agriculture is really rain fed. From a person who works in this industry, and also bearing in mind that agriculture is really plays about, what, 25% of our GDP, are we doing enough as a government from all the sectors involved in terms of boosting this vital sector?
First of all, let me make it clear that our organization is non-governmental.
Okay.
It is a non-profit organization. But we work with government.
Yes.
Governments are not in business. Governments are now even disposing the businesses that they have. Ours is to advocate to every person
Yes.
that it is our mandate to do the business, be it agriculture, be it whatever commerce. The government is to provide an enabling environment for people to practice the business that they know best. Government did put effort in focusing in irrigation the year before and even now.
Yes.
Because depending on rain will not take us far.
Yes.
The weather patterns have been changing ever since. And that is the area we need to advocate.
Yes.
We have seen private sector coming in with technology of irrigation. When you come to Nakuru next week, 9th and 10th, Amiran is promoting a 1 acre irrigation kit, which is going to make a difference
Yes.
in the rural areas, particularly where rainfall is independent. It is not dependable.
Yes.
So that is the focus we need to do. The government has been subsidizing fertilizers. I want to encourage all the farmers and all the traders to come together, particularly the farmers, to purchase their own fertilizer, be it importing or having factories of our own here,
Yes.
so that we have our inputs on time at the prices that are below the international markets.
Mr. Bett, coming from, you've rightly put, you're not a governmental organizations, but I understand that probably part of your mandate will be to lobby for some of this, for the government to effect some of these things. Moving forward, looking at where we are as a country in terms of chasing after food security, moving forward, if you were to propose 3 deliverables from the government, what would you propose in terms of securing food security in this country?
1, an enabling environment. That's removal of taxes. We are now at debate on the VAT being imposed on farm inputs and outputs. That's an enabling environment that we need.
Yes.
Facilitation of groups and farm groups or the sector in agriculture of accessible funding when they allocate 1.5 billion or 1.6 billion.
Yes.
Towards agribusiness, how is that fund going to be managed? It has to be put in such a way that it reaches the people that they intended to.
Yes.
That is a deliverable. Again, an envelope. I would say enabling environment, enabling environment, enabling environment. More than 3.
Yes. That
Those
is what is
policies
required.
that will promote and encourage agriculture. Because the common goal is food security for all.
Correct. Well, my director tells me we're really running out of time. And as you've heard it, we've been talking to Judah Arap Bett, who's the chairman of the Eastern African Grain Council. And 3 things come up. We need an enabling environment if we are able to ensure that we are food secure as a country moving on. And be sure to catch some of the activities happening down in the Rift Valley and trying to just create awareness amongst farmers and both government and all players in this very vital sector. Well, this has been your home of business, KTN Financial Markets Live, on the day that Eagers Limited was the top gainer, up 9.23%, and it was selling at 35 shillings and 50 cents. Please book a date with us later on KTN Business Today for a more concise look at the day's top business news coming to you later on in the evening. My name is Bonnie Tunya. Do have a lovely afternoon.